Shalom Chavrim, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and of course, as we say, it is Ein Shalom. There is no peace. And this morning I was watching on RT News. Suspicious doesn't begin to describe what happened. Iran's foreign minister on tanker attacks in the Gulf of Oman. I have to kind of say that as well. Let me kind of get this a little bit turned down here. We're a little bit awkward here. There we go. And it is very suspicious what's going on. I do have a one source there that I contacted. He's up in Canada right now. I won't say any more about that there, but just wanted to get their thoughts as well on the situation there in the Gulf of Oman. And because my first reaction was the U.S. may be the one that has actually torpedoed the ship, or one of our U.S. allies. And the reason why I suggested this to the friend of mine there was because what we're looking at is the fact that the Japanese are refusing to obey the sanctions that the U.S. has, or the embargo on the oil coming out of Iran. And the Japanese, of course, went there, loaded up the ships full of oil, and are now headed out of Iran with that oil. And of course, both these ships, from what I understand, have been struck. Now, the article says here, Iran's foreign minister has labeled the reported attack on two Japan-related oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman as suspicious, occurring just as Japanese Prime Minister Abe came to Tehran for major talks. Expressing his misgiving on Twitter, Javad Zarif noted that the incidents on the two vessels on Thursday, one of which had been reportedly struck by a torpedo, had occurred as Abe sat down for extensive and friendly discussions with Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. So there you have it. If that's not sending a message to the U.S. conquered ally, Japan, and I say conquered because, granted, the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. Of course, there's a lot to be said about Pearl Harbor as well. I know that. So those of you that might say, well, Steve, there's more to Pearl Harbor than you realize. I realize that. Also, my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, that is, everybody's got multiple grandfathers because you got a mom and you got a dad, etc., right? You got great-grandparents as well, but it's actually my stepdad's father was in Pearl Harbor on the day of the attack and was going down the road in his car. He was a sergeant in the Army there, and he had the bullets coming through the roof of his car while he drove there on the streets there in Japan there. So yeah, I'm a little bit aware of that. And of course, my mother's father also was in the Navy, went to war as well at that time because of the Japanese bringing the United States into the Second World War. But that notwithstanding, let me just say this as well. When it comes to this situation, Japan is a free country. Japan should have a right to choose who they do business with, and but that's being definitely subverted when their ships are being targeted. Not to mention, I guess the Japanese can get the oil a whole lot cheaper, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're doing it. Can't really say why that's happening, but the issue is right now, it is obvious that one of the ships at least has been torpedoed. This could easily escalate, friends, and this is what we've been watching all along. Escalation, Iran, it's not a good picture. I'll tell you that right now. If the United States gets into a war with Iran, one of my friends that's in the intelligence field had said to me that it would be very difficult for the United States to be able to take on a war with Iran, because if they take it on, it's not to say the U.S. could not defeat Iran, but at the same time, the U.S. has got to consider the fear of what the Chinese might do in relations to Taiwan or something of that effect there. So this is a very big volatile problem that we're dealing with right now. And of course, Syria is still laying there in the background. If a war breaks out with Iran, will Russia get involved? Because Iran is their great ally. We're talking about a possibility of nuclear war. And we know, as we shared with you yesterday, what Putin said. Putin was given a very dire warning that 2021 is the end of all these treaties on nuclear weapons. You could end up having nuclear weapons hanging up in a satellite right directly above you from any nation practically on the planet. So, and he's telling the people, it's like they said in the report we were taking this from. It's like an SOS he was sending out. Look, friends, let's do something. Let's get back to the table. Let's talk about this. And on top of that, the U.S., we are really in a volatile state as far as our economy. And I know some people say, well, we're not. President Trump is doing a great job building up the economy. All right. Well, let me just say this, though. But we're still, when Obama was in office, we were at, what, 19 trillion in debt. And now that debt has grown to, what, about 23, 24 trillion. How much longer can our economy survive? And the only way that they help try to pay down the debt is with war. And then when we're dealing with Israel, here we are in a horrible situation with our economy, but then we're sending billions of dollars of military aid to Israel, and Israel is totally debt-free. Maybe there should be some trade negotiations with Israel. I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself, but then again, we shouldn't be starting all these wars in the Middle East, guys. I mean, think about it. I mean, it's the United States, Saudi Arabia, Israel has admitted to it now, and Turkey as well. All these countries have been heavily involved in arming the jihadists to overthrow Syria. We overthrew Iraq at the cost of many American lives. And for what? Because Netanyahu was convinced that the Iraqis had nuclear weapons or yellow cake, and they had the ability to make weapons of mass destruction. You can say mass destruction, interpret that anything. That doesn't really say that it's a nuclear weapon because we said it was weapons of mass destruction. This is a very serious situation, friends, and of course we know that's what's coming. I see a new world order on the rise. I really do, and I personally am not in favor of Prime Minister Netanyahu being the Prime Minister of Israel. That's just my personal take on that. You can do what you want as Israelis as far as who you want to vote for. And I don't see anybody good on the ticket to begin with, even when elections do come back around in September. There's just, you need somebody in Israel that is for peace. Somebody that would say, even like in the case of Syria, these are our brothers. This is where the mothers, the matriarchs of Israel were all Syrians. Why are we involved as Israeli people in the destruction of the country that is the matriarchs of our nation? And Iran. Netanyahu pours that drink of water and says Iran's got a water problem because of its government. No, it doesn't. It's because of what we're doing in Afghanistan to help protect the poppy trade, for heaven's sakes. Cut the river off. Yeah, I got a source from Iran that was able to tell me about that. We cut the water supply off to Iran, the river, because they needed all that water to make sure the poppy fields were doing great. Now, no, listen. I got a cousin, Navy CB, served in Afghanistan and everything. He knows, he tells me about some things as well. But, and I've had friends that say to me that we went there to we're destroying the poppy fields. Yeah, you do some of that, for good favor because they're the enemy's poppy fields and you don't want the enemy to be able to have the poppy to be able to fund their jihadist wars, But, and listen, no doubt Russia may do the exact same thing to help get the cash they need to fund these wars that they have to fund as well, the fighting that they're doing in different parts of the world. But I will give Putin credit for one thing here. The man is trying to get the people to the table to start talking and stop this fighting. Some of the European countries, including Slovakia, even Poland, is wanting normalized relationship with Russia. Because why? Like in Poland, all the apples are laying on the ground rotting because they can't sell anything to Russia. And the U.S. has got them in a headlock if they do. I tell you, it's a real trouble when I see these things. We could have peace in this world. We really could. If we would stop using war to fund our economy. we could have some peace in this world. But I just don't see it happening. And I am, I realize this here, the Japanese ships being torpedoed. It doesn't mean this will be something that will cause an all-out war in the region, but there could be things that are going on that we're not aware of that could escalate into a massive war at any time. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Shalom to you. I say shalom. Peace be to you. Find Christ Jesus. He's that only true peace. Because the world itself and those demonic beings that are in control of this world, they don't want peace. They're looking for destruction, and Satan is looking to be sitting in the temple of God, being worshipped as if he were God. And remember, there will be a temple in the Middle East there that he'll have as well, but the real temple that he wants is to use technology to live inside of you. Erev Tov.